that America can believe in them.
At this point in that presidential campaign, this 46-year-old senator from Illinois was still an underdog, but slowly starting to catch fire. This year, the youngest candidate in the race is also on the move.
Are you ready to go into that hall and leave no question about who has the momentum in Iowa right now?
It's too soon to know if Pete Buttigieg will follow the rise of Barack Obama, but he's turning some of the same heads in Iowa, like Terry and John Hale.
So does he remind you of Senator Obama?
Absolutely. It's the intelligence, it's that cool composure, it's the ability to be presidential, the energy and the excitement and the positivity and the hope. That's what I feel at events for Pete, and I have not felt that since Barack Obama.
You didn't feel it 4 years ago?
No, I didn't.
No two campaigns or candidates are the same, yet both men represent a fresh face and are calling for change.
Same old Washington textbook campaigns just won't do in this election.
The idea of Medicare for all who want it, my plan, is we give everybody the chance to be on Medicare, and we also let you decide whether you want it. And I think leaving the choice to the American people is the better option for us in our lives as Americans, as well as being part of a plan that's easier to explain how we're going to pay this. I think my plan is better because it's dramatically more affordable and because it allows you to choose your plan.
What I'm offering is the most progressive presidency of our lifetimes. Yeah, it's true. I'm not going to go out to the extremes that some of the others will, but I'm also offering something that we can actually get done. If we achieve this, Medicare for all who want it, it would be huge, and it's the best pathway we have toward a Medicare for all environment. It's a great idea, it's the right thing to do, and it's the boldest thing we will have done to healthcare in more than 50 years. Because it's not better to command millions of Americans to abandon their private plans. Look, most Americans want to be able to make this decision themselves, and I trust you to figure out whether you want to come on this public plan that I'm proposing we create, or stick with what you've got. For a tiny fraction of the cost of what they're proposing, we can get every single American healthcare, and we do it in a way that respects your ability to make your decision.
Now, on the big picture around climate, Paris should be viewed as a floor, not a ceiling. And I actually see an opportunity in this, as bad as it has gotten with both how close we are to catastrophe in climate and the disappearance of U.S. leadership from the world stage. I also see in that the opportunity to do something important, which is restore American credibility. But climate is the top example of a major issue that the U.S. can't solve alone because most of the emissions are coming from around the world, and that the world can't solve without us because we're still in the leadership position and we're the world's largest economy. That means that we must show global leadership, and when we do, when the people of the world and the leaders of the world see America leading on global climate change, when global climate diplomacy is something that really matters, that is a really important way that we can reestablish our credibility and leadership on an issue where we really are needed. We did not have an open-ended, massive ground troop commitment in Syria. We had a small handful of special operators and intelligence assets, literally in some areas just a few dozen people, who were able to be the line between what was going on and the possibility of descending into chaos. That's very likely the way forward in the medium term for a place like Afghanistan. We've got to withdraw from Afghanistan in the context of a political settlement that protects American interests and sees to it that that country can never again be used as a base for a terror attack against the United States of America. In order to do that, that very likely means having some kind of very targeted, very small, light footprint presence of special operators and intelligence assets. Where the president seems to have gotten confused is the idea that it's either endless war or total disappearance. Unfortunately, when you totally disappear from a volatile area, often that's exactly what can lead to more chaos and make a war more likely, which is exactly what we have seen in the case of Syria. What we've seen is that the substance of the Douglas Plan is extremely well received in our outreach to black voters. This is the most comprehensive plan that's been put forward in this election in order to tear down systemic racism in all of its forms, and brings audiences to their feet when I get a chance to explain it. But we've got a lot of engagement ahead. The substance is good, but we still got to go out there and make sure that I do my job as a candidate and that there's no question in any voter's mind, especially black voters, trying to size up my campaign.
The primary criticism of Mayor Pete is that he is or has been insensitive to African American voters and therefore polls poorly with them. Mayor Pete needs to respond in his typical direct and candid manner and acknowledge this as a weakness. But as he intends to do as president, he will recognize his weakness and overcome it.
Well, experience matters and it deserves to be respected. So does judgment, so does vision. And I'm offering a different vision. I'm offering a different approach. What I'm putting forward is the idea that there's no such thing as going back to normal, but we don't have to be afraid of that if we build a new normal that's going to work better. I just don't think that Donald Trump is a blip or an aberration. I think we got to this point as a country for a reason, and I think we got to see into the future in order to understand what is going to be required of the next president. I'm certainly young. I'm the youngest candidate in the field. Every candidate brings our mix of experience and vision to the table. And while it's certainly true that wisdom can come with age, it's not true that they're the same. Just look at the current White House. We have the oldest president we've ever had and by no means the wisest.
The reality is that we're living in a moment where around the world we're seeing a new generation of leaders. Some of the most interesting and promising leaders in the world right now are the same age or younger than I would be on taking office. And I'll put my experience guiding a city up against a whole lot in terms of what we were dealing with in South Bend, guiding that city to a better future, not to mention my military experience. I'll put that up against any experience. Yes, I'm young. I represent a new generation. You know what? Every single winning Democratic candidate in the last 50 years has been somebody who came from outside of Washington, was new on the national scene, talked a lot about values, and represented a new generation of leadership.
What is on my mind, though, is that we got to deal not just with Trump, but with Trumpism. And whether it's him on the ballot, if he does survive this process, and we're dealing with him next November, or in some other way, it's going to be really important for the American people to send a message to people like the congressional Republicans who deep down know better than to be on board with this. They're riding a tiger, but they're not listening to their own conscience because they think to stay in power requires them to stay stapled to the Trump presidency long past when it's been defensible in any way. And so what's on my mind is how do we make sure, no matter who the president is next November, and knowing what I know as Senate Republicans, there's a good chance that it remains President Trump, that we not only win the presidency, but have such a decisive election victory that it has enough shockwaves that it can reunite congressional Republicans with our conscience and bring an end not just to the Trump presidency, but to Trumpism as a force in American politics.
The most important thing now is to make sure we create a vision of the future that can bring Americans together and that doesn't have the weaknesses of the last 30, 40-year period we've been living in. If things were going along just fine in this country before Donald Trump, then a guy like Donald Trump would never have been able to get within cheating distance of the Oval Office to begin with. I believe in kindness, but no one should mistake my kindness for weakness. And when it comes to dealing with this president, of course he's going to try the same playbook, but it's not going to work on me. He's going to talk about socialism, but in my case, he'll be saying that about a mayor who worked with the private sector to deliver opportunities in our city. He's going to talk a big game about caring about working Americans, but you know, I live in a middle-class neighborhood in the Midwest and drive a Chevy. I don't helicopter around to golf courses with my name on it. But I just don't agree that we can go back to normal. I don't believe that Donald Trump is a blip. I believe that the emergence of the Trump presidency is a symptom of some really serious, deep problems that need attention in this country. And this is about building a new normal. This is about deciding what the next chapter in American history is going to be like, not going back to the last one.
Because the truth is, there is no honest politics that revolves around the word again. The truth is that we have to recognize that these changes are coming. The changes are going to happen with or without us. The question isn't, can we stop the changes and rewind them? The question is, how do we make sure those changes actually work for us? It can be done. And it must be done because that's how we're actually going to come together.